Started. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:39 p.m. Joan is going to go ahead and say the prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and we thank you for these people that are taking time out of their busy day to come here and just see how we can help in just some small way, Father. We just lift up all the hurricane victims to you in so many states, Father. So much devastation. They say apocalyptic destruction and death and injuries. And Father, just if there's any way that we can help, let each and every one of us just let us know how we can help. And we just pray your peace and comfort and goodwill over those people, and healing and provision and protection during the upcoming months, as we know from many of us personal experience how devastating hurricanes can be. Father, we pray for our country. We pray for this upcoming election. We thank you for Mr. Bender, that he's willing to step in and be our supervisor of elections for Escambia County. We pray protection over him and provision for him and wisdom and just your leading, Father, and just be with us tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Y'all come on in. We're gonna do the pledge.
And Pam, can you lead us in the pledge since you're a veteran?
Let's do that. Oh, glory of God.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and it looks like we definitely have enough for a quorum, so that is good. The minutes, have we had a chance to review the minutes? Everybody that's a voting member? And if we have, if somebody wants to make a motion. All right, Kathy makes a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
I second the motion. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. And Christine is not here, so we can't do the treasure report. So if she shows up, we'll get it when she gets here. Maybe she's just running late or something. So we'll just skip that for now. Joan, do you want to do the membership report?
Sure. We have 26 active members. We have 8 associate members, and we have a new member tonight.
Okay.
Would you stand up and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Cindy Rasky.
Welcome, Cindy. We're glad to have you. So we now have 27 active members as of tonight. And we have a new, I don't know if you noticed, I think I tried to tell everyone, we have a new column for the members sign-in, which is volunteer hours, because FFRW, our state parent organization, wants us to track our volunteer hours. So if you haven't already sent me your volunteer hours for the whole year, try to figure out what you have, and that could be meetings. Tonight counts as volunteer hours. It could be sign waving, it could be texting, it could be voter registration, it could be making phone calls, it could be if you volunteered at the Matt Gates event over when he had the prayer thing, or any other event, Rick Scott, anything, door knocking. Just try to keep track, and then from now on, every month when you come in, just jot down. It doesn't have to be exact. A guesstimate is good enough. And then I was trying to think what else. We got gallery night's going to be October 18th. That's Fright Night. And I tell you what, we've been getting a lot of good traffic at gallery night, even though they bumped us down we're in front of Bubba's Sweet Spot. So if you want to volunteer for gallery night, come on down and bring don't eat dessert. You can get something from Bubba's while you're down there.
Yep,
So,
we always sneak in and get ice cream.
and mostly positive response. We had a couple of anti-Trumpers stop by the table last time, which was fun. That can always be interesting. So, and dress in costume, and if anybody wants to dress like the Statue of Liberty or Uncle Sam, I have those costumes. I did Statue of Liberty last year, so if anybody wants to borrow that. Trying to think if there's anything else. So far, for volunteer hours, not counting this meeting, I counted up your meeting hours, so you don't have to calculate that for me. And we have close to 700 just meeting hours between everybody. And, so that's pretty good. And,
Hey, excuse me,
Sure.
they busted up the strike.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
They got some kind of an agreement.
Well,
So
there
I
you
think
go.
temporary-
That's good news, thanks for,
Maybe it had something
Just
to
a
do
minute
with it.
ago.
May have something to do with Governor DeSantis saying we ain't gonna play that way. Florida plays different.
Whatever it was, at least,
Yeah, so good, that's good news, thank you. So,
Awesome.
that's all I have. Oh, last meeting when we had our speed vetting with all the candidates, how many of you guys came to that? So,
Yeah.
that was fun. We got some good feedback on that. We decided that next time we do it, we're gonna do it earlier, though. It was kind of a last minute thing, but we thought it was fun and I got some good feedback. We had a total in attendance with guests of 54 people that came to that, so. Okay.
All right, so up next on the list is our Jewel Crown Award. So, those of you that are current members know that we kind of give it to the person that does the most phone calls and is successfully gets the most people to a meeting. But we haven't really been doing that lately because we've kind of sent all of them. So I thought maybe we would award it to the person who I know has been probably working the hardest out of all of us. So how does that sound? Does that sound fair?
I bet I know who it is.
Okay, we'll see if you agree with me. Ellen, you wanna come up here?
Yeah.
Let Ellen tell us what all she's been doing.
Yeah, tell us exactly what you've been doing.
Well, let's see, I'm from Arizona, and we lived there 6 years and moved here because we moved into a retirement community. And I feel like I've died and gone to heaven because I love Florida, I love how they do politics, I love how they do elections. I was involved a little bit with Fight Voter Fraud. Has anybody here heard of that? So they've been working for years kind of under the radar, using publicly available data to check and find people who are voting multiple times in the same election. And sometimes it's just because they moved from one state to the next and the previous state didn't take them off the rolls. But as long as they only voted in the new state, that's fine. But we have 2 people in Escambia County where it looks like they voted twice in the same election, once in one state and then once when they got here. However, that was back in 2016, and there hasn't been anything since then, so that's the really good news. There are states that it's rampant, double registrations, their rolls are terrible. It's hard to get people off the rolls in Arizona, California, other states. And so this group has done a great service. They've now made these reports publicly available. So as a PC, I requested the reports for Escambia County, and they emailed those to me, and I was so relieved to find out how good things are here. But I'm also making phone calls to Arizona because, as you know, they're one of the swing states, yes, thank you.
She's been at gallery night, she's been flag waving, she's
Voter
done pretty much everything,
registration.
so she's been working pretty hard, so I had to give her massive props for that. Thank you. Don't worry, we're gonna get a picture with you with your crown. Okay, Pam wanted to talk about small business. We try to always promote small businesses here, and Pam has a small business she'd like to talk about.
Okay, I'm just gonna say real quick that we are having, free 2-hour session for veterans during the month of October at Regeneration Station. And so anybody who's a veteran or active duty, they just need to make an appointment because we could get busy. And so we just need to, have people get their appointments scheduled. But if you wanna come and try our services, you can do it for free for 2 hours in the month of October. And what we have is really amazing. It's an energy enhancement system. And it's spreading around the country, different centers are opening, and for me, it has changed my life. I was sick and in pain all the time, every day, and I was tired of it, and now I have no pain, and I'm actually aging backwards, so that's what it's done for me. So it's mind, body, spirit, it can help aches, pains, mental health, PTSD, that's why we wanna get the veterans in, because a lot of them have issues from all the stuff that's been going on. And it's really good for that as well, so. Anyway, and then I wanted to take just a minute, and I've got some information. And I'm also involved right now with this organization, and it's actually called the Re-Inhabited Republic for the United States of America. And I know we talk about the Republic, but if you listen to the news, they're always saying democracy, democracy.
Right.
That's because the Republic was abandoned during the Civil War when they were having all those fights. So this organization I'm reading the book, I haven't finished it, but they're standing up from county level to state level. The national's already taken care of, the states are already taken care of. We're working on the counties right now. And basically, the Republic is like a placeholder standing, and this is kind of like plan B. If all else fails, there's a couple things that could happen. They could do something really crazy, the Democrats, and we might not have an election. Or we have an election and they cheat again. We know 2020 was stolen, we haven't fixed that, so they cheat again. I mean, who knows what the scenarios could be, but this is an organization that's been around since 2010 and is very well organized, and they've been working with the military to take over if the corporation fails. And the corporation's bankrupt, we know they don't have any money. So nobody knows what's gonna happen, but this is plan B. If anybody's interested, I'll leave some brochures over at the table.
Thanks, Pam. All right, so Doris and I can kind of talk about, we just got back from the fall Florida Federated Republican Women's Conference. It was in Daytona, it was the 13th or the 15th of September. We had Byron Donalds as our guest speaker, who was wonderful.
Yes.
He was so fun. I mean, he was like trying to call Trump for us and everything. At least he said he was. But anyway, he was really, really funny, and we really enjoyed it, right? Yeah, we just had a blast with him. The meeting opened up. Barbara Price, our new president, she opened it up. She forgot her gavel, so she took off her shoe, her high heel shoe, and stomped it on the table, and it was really fun. And she announced that they had this huge tax audit issue that they thought they were gonna have to pay like $30,000 with the Democratic administration. It was gonna be ugly, and they ended up working it out, and they had no payment at all. So that worked out really, really well. Yeah. So there was like an issue with the previous treasurer not following up and doing things. And then on that own note, we found out about our treasurer. We found out whether we needed to file taxes, and we do not need to file taxes. Apparently, we don't make enough money. So that's good news for us. Yeah. Just a couple of things. Marianne Pastelli spoke. She's on the program Trump Force 47, and she talked about the election being too big to rig. She spoke about the importance of using campaign sidekick to target MPA, low propensity, and Republican voters. So what they're saying is, we use WebElect. We've been using it for about 6 months now to try and get people here to the meetings and get the word out. But in order to work for the campaign and for everybody to be on the same page, we all need to use the same program as the people that are working the door knocking for the campaigns and stuff, and that's Campaign Sidekick. So I talked to Katie Birmingham, who is Rick Scott's person here in town, and she's gonna set up a Zoom meeting for this coming Tuesday, and apparently every Tuesday after that, to get people signed up, do the training, and once you do that, then you can get a list of people to start door knocking. So easy peasy. Or phone calling, or whatever. Yeah, but she already loaded mine. Doris and I actually got access at the conference. So Doris, you could just contact her and have her add you onto the precinct.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see, what else? Make sure I don't miss anything. The Leadership Institute spoke, and they were really, really good, and they talked about, you know, like communication issues and how we communicate with Democrats. And so what they said was that the left only cares about caring and fairness, and that women rank the highest in speaking about caring and fairness, so we need to be the ones kind of like getting that message out. And they gave some examples of ways to communicate, so like, children are dying and being abandoned on the border is one way to kind of get Democrats to understand the border issue. Coyotes are taking advantage of women and children. Women experience depression and suicide after having an abortion, so that would be a talking point. Parents and boyfriends pressure women to have abortions, and abortion amendments remove parental rights. There's some of the things that you could kind of talk about to help kind of guide that conversation. Let's see, so then Julie Harris, Sue Lynch, and Randy Fine, who's the District 33 House Republican, had a roundtable discussion on Israel. They talked about the signs that were up during the Holocaust in Germany could be seen in the US today. They're that similar in their message. And if it happens in Israel, it could happen here. And one of the slogans they've been saying is, today we practice the Saturday people, tomorrow we come for the Sunday people. So that ought to tell you where we're at with that. Let's see, what else? We had Don Kerr and Chris Jersky talk about election integrity. They talked about Trump won 72% of the lawsuits that were heard. So that's kind of interesting. And they said that what happened in Venezuela is exactly what is happening here. And Venezuela has now banned Smartmatic and the ESS machines. And maybe you can talk about that one. Maybe you can bring us around to it.
Yeah.
Let's see. The leadership also gave another speech where they talk about navigating disagreement. They said it's okay to say you don't know enough, to make sure you know your facts, to make sure you know your triggers, to know how to communicate, make sure you listen to people. Don't just listen to talk back, listen and actually hear what they're saying when you're talking to them. Listen to understand, clarify, ask questions, be curious, don't make assumptions about people. Think before you speak. Don't assign intent to someone. Restate to understand. Get on the same page, and remember, being receptive equals being persuasive. Let's see. Then we had Valerie Funstein, who did a social media presence talk, and she kind of talked about making sure we use hashtags. She talked about a lot of things. There was so much that was over my head. I thought I knew social media, but there was a lot, right, Doris?
Yes. But I like the idea of hashtags.
Yeah, so if you use hashtags when you do that, I guess people can search for that, and you'll end up getting more people bringing the message, getting to your message that way. So when we post stuff, we need to make sure we're always posting hashtag NFRW, hashtag EFRW, FFRW, and so forth. And then I asked her, I said, I haven't been able to get into the Florida Federated Republican Women's members only page, and there's a ton of information in there. There's videos, there's all kinds of information. So the password, if you guys want to write it down, is FFRW 2023 exclamation point.
Is it all lowercase?
Uppercase.
All uppercase.
Can you say it again?
FFRW 2023 exclamation point.
What's the website, just so everybody can jot it
I
down?
don't know, it's, just type in
Florida
NFRW.
Federated Republican
No, the
Women.
National Federated
Oh,
Republican
oh.
Women. This is the,
But that's our password.
that's our password for it, yep. And then, they talked about Caring for America, which we try to do. Of course, we're doing the hurricane relief drives right now for Michelle Salzman. So if anybody wants to donate, there's a money jog right over there. We're gonna collect cash, but we're also collecting, whatever kind of donations you can get. If you look over there on the poster, I think it says school supplies, what else?
Schools, I can't read it.
Paper, notebooks,
I know.
cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
You get the idea. So if you wanna bring those and donate them, you can always drop them off here. I'll collect them and I'll take them straight to Michelle Salzman.
I have the list. PCA has put out the list. PCA is helping Michelle.
Oh, are they?
Yes,
Oh, that's good.
and they put out a list.
Okay. Do
Well,
you want to post it on our Facebook page so
Yes,
that everybody
I can do that,
Okay.
yes.
And Vicki Campbell sent out a text. She was, She's one of our members, for those that don't know her, and she said that at Marcus Point tonight, where we normally meet, they have a truck they're loading that'll be leaving tomorrow. And so she said, when we get done here, if anybody wants to go over there and help sort and load and do that, they're welcome to go. Now,
If
they
anybody
may
can
have
do
it
that, that
done
would
by-
be great, they do a
'cause
lot for us, so.
Yeah, they may be done by the time we get done here, but,
I have a couple of bags in my car.
So- yeah, so.
But, so anyway, Caring for America, of course, we do that, but, you know, throughout the year, we're gonna start doing that. Once the election's over, we still have to be, you know, kind of motivated in doing stuff. And so we're gonna continue to do things like the Kimberly Tower Fund that we did last year. Of course, we do the stuff with, I think we donated to the rescue animals last year. But anyway, so we're gonna continue to find those kinds of things, and we'll do more social stuff as well, so. But we need to remember to be,
Oh, I just have a question. If any members wanted to go to the conferences, is it open to any member that wants
anyone
to?
can go. I mean, we pay for the, registration for the two members, the president and whoever the second person is. And sometimes it's, most of the time it's Doris, but it's whoever.
Mhm.
So, but anyone else can go. You can always pay for the registration and go. It's expensive. I mean, for us, even with just paying for the registration, we still end up paying probably another $1,000, right, a piece. So it's not a cheap, venture, but
It's a weekend,
anyone is
it's a
welcome to
weekend
go.
thing.
What's that?
It's a whole weekend, or a Friday and Saturday night,
Saturday
right?
and Sunday.
And Sunday, and they do it semi-annual?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one was in Daytona, right on the beach, and it was a really nice, right, it was a nice venue. They had like a fire pit out there and s'mores, they would give you s'mores kits, and it was really fun. And we did a flag waving the first day, that was super fun, and,
It was.
yeah, so, I don't know, do you have anything to add, Doris?
No, you just put it all in there. It was a lot
But
of
you're with
fun.
like-minded women.
It was very
From all over the state.
educational, very educational.
They did also recommend a book. This is Parliamentary Procedure at a Glance, so it's kind of like a abbreviated Robert's Rules of Order. So if you wanted something like a Cliff Notes version, this is the one that they recommended, so you can take a peek at that. It's the one I just ordered.
$16.50 at Amazon.
Let's see, you're supposed to, Byron Donalds. We got an award while we
Oh,
were there,
yeah, yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So, we got the Silver Medal Small Club Fundraising Award, so. So we'll have to take a picture after the meeting, we'll have to line up and take a picture with it and put it on our page, so. Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
We didn't think we would, but.
Yeah, we didn't think we would get anything. We actually submitted after the deadline, but they were kind enough to give us an award anyway. Let's see, we talked about the hurricane help, right?
Mhm.
Poll watchers, do you know if they're still able to sign up as a poll watcher, or is it too late?
No, they're still able to.
Still able to,
It's,
okay.
ProtectTheVote.com.
14 days before, election day is the deadline.
And still, you can sign up at protectthevote.com.
ProtectTheVote.com, that's where you go to sign up. I think that works better than that little QR, it seems like it got people better if you send them to the website.
I wanted to ask if you've been a poll watcher, do you still have to sign up again to be a poll watcher, or?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you sign up both for early voting and then election day is separate.
Yeah,
And they'll send things for you for both of those, but you sign up for both of them separately.
okay.
And then I wanted to.
It usually comes from the part, like, John will send us the list
John.
for the Republicans, or, someone from Senator Scott's campaign sends it to us for them, or, so,
Okay.
right.
I'll get with you then after.
Is it too late to sign up for poll working?
We're doing okay on poll. I noticed a lot of people in here that I've seen the last few days. So, we had about 140 that we gave the mandatory class, review class to about two or 3 weeks ago. So I think we're doing okay right now.
Good.
Yeah, so we're not having the issue that we see with the other places.
And we received a donation, in the mail, and I just wanted to read you the letter real quick. It says, ladies, I know we haven't met yet, still trying to sell our home in Idaho. I made these blankets and donated as raffle items to help with funding for women's clubs. With such an important election coming around the corner, I wanted to send one to you, hoping it will help, and yeah, we get to count the 1,000 hours it takes to make this. Each line and row is hand woven, and instructions for care and certificate are included. Wishing you well and praying we sell so very soon. Becky Vance. Now, some of us do know Becky Vance, right? She's your neighbor. But she still hasn't sold her house in Idaho, so she can't be like a full member yet. But so we got this Swedish weave blanket throw over 1,000 hours to do, and I thought I would show you guys real quick. Here, Joan, you want to help me? So we'll kind of show you.
Wow. Well, I think she does, I don't know if it was 1,000 just for this blanket, did she say?
Could be,
Said 1,000 hours.
because you have to tie.
Because I know she does
to that
these.
people, that's the loom.
She said she does these and donates them, that's
I
beautiful.
think she's a loom.
You guys will have to come see it. Is there a place we can?
I will give that to you if you want to put that over there. And there's the box. And up next is the good news jar. A lot of you guys know what the good news jar is. Basically, if you have any good news to share, you put $1 in the jar and then we'll let you share it. Otherwise, no sharing it. You have to wait till after the meeting. So does anybody have any good news to share? No? Okay. You guys probably are donating enough.
Well, I have some good news.
Oh, okay.
But I'll have to dig my wallet out later, but the strike is, they've come to an agreement on the strike, so that's good.
That is good news.
Hey, and what are we gonna do with the blanket? Possibly give
Well,
it
she
as a
said
prize
raffles, so
or
there'll be a raffle or a Christmas
Yeah, so.
prize at the end of the year.
Christmas.
I think a Christmas prize, so we could do that.
So I'm not gonna put it completely away in case y'all wanna look at it
Yeah.
after the meeting.
And-
I have some good news.
Okay, yeah.
I'll stand here. So, I call in for the governor's faith and community call that he has weekly. And they are prioritizing the no on 4. And they are doing an amazing job the way they're spreading the word. You can use the I-360 app if you wanted to go door knocking, they'll assign an area to you. But I think that's wonderful news because we are one of the few states that has this type of office. And, I mean, it's just amazing. I think that's really good news, and I'll get you the $1.
All right. Jenna, do you wanna do, or do you wanna hand Velda the social media report to do real quick?
I can do it.
Okay.
For site visitors, it says 1,027, and we're having lots of conversations. And I think the last post that we did about Michelle getting the donations for the children's club, I think that got a lot of
Okay,
attention.
so I think it's up, on that one that said 1,000, how many, did it say up, it had a positive and then?
Like, it says from the last 12 months.
I think it's up like 90 since last month, I think
Yeah.
is basically what it said.
From the last
Okay.
30 days, it went up 90.
Yep, so that's pretty good, so we're getting some traction.
So
We're
remember to
looking at our
follow and
website,
remember to share.
thinking about coming to the meetings.
I never see them, it's where
Oh, yeah,
I
thank you.
have to take them out of one mailbox and put them in another sometimes.
All right, so up next is gonna be Mr. Robert Bender.
Can you tell me about your pen?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, one last
Go
thing.
ahead.
So, this was a pin that Barbara Price was wearing at the conference, and, so somebody asked her about it, and so then she told us. So when she got one, I ordered one too. So you can see it's the state of Florida, and it's a little baby feet, and it's actually a perfect thing to wear on your shirt to get people to ask you about Vote No on 4. So when they ask you, then you can say, hey, let me talk to you about Vote No on 4. So you can just order it on Amazon, just Florida and baby feet.
Florida baby.
A lot of people ask her about the pen.
Yeah, so I actually went on when I ordered it and I did a review and I wrote that it was a great conversation starter for Vote No on 4, so now that's on Amazon.
That's on Amazon?
No, I put Vote No on 4 on Amazon.
But she
on the
ordered it
review.
on Amazon,
I ordered
yes.
it on Amazon,
That's
yep.
what I meant.
Yes.
Florida
You can
baby
order
feet.
it from Amazon.
You can order it from Amazon, yes.
Got it.
All right, does anybody wear a medium shirt? Anybody? Congratulations.
Ah. You can open it up and show them. We got those free at the conference, so.
All right, and now, Mr. Bender, Supervisor of Elections, be gentle with him and, thanks for coming.
We'll try.
Don't be too hard on him.
Well, thank you for having me. We did, a little bit of good news for us. We had our logic and accuracy test today. So we essentially run a mini election. The process is that we randomly select 10 machines to be tested. We have test decks that we run through there, and essentially we make sure that votes for candidate A get counted as votes for candidate A. Everything works out the way it's supposed to. Things, modem to our warehouse, and we can read the sticks and everything like that, and then the results are compiled, and that those come out the way we expect them to as well. So everything went well for that, and so we have sealed those equipment, and those will remain sealed until election day or until they get deployed for early voting. So for that, we are ready for the election to begin and everything like that. So I know registration's been mentioned a couple times. WER did come and film a little bit of the logic and accuracy test today, and so I wanted to remind everybody of that Monday, October 7th is the last day to get registrations, to register to vote. They have a couple days to get them to us after that, but October 7th, our office will be open until 7 p.m. So people can come in, and really it'll be the front lobby of the county will be open, so they come through and come up, and we can get them registered. That'll be till 7 p.m. Of course, you can go online and do that as well. All right, so I know you had a couple things you wanted me to address. I'll preface this by saying is that I am familiar with the state of Florida. I don't really know what goes on in some of these other states, not because right, is that I
big enough.
Yes, I was on the canvassing board in 2020 for the presidential election cycle as the county commissioner, and then of course I got to do those 3 elections with David Stafford and a county judge, and so like someone said, there was a strike with Verizon. I didn't even, there was issues with Verizon. We've got so much going on right now that I just don't have time to read the news or really know, but I do know what's going on in Florida, and so we had a call with the Secretary of State, and so I always like to say is that we're the gold standard in elections, and it's not by accident, right? After 2000, we didn't like how we were portrayed across the country, and so the legislator has taken steps to change laws, and we put money behind it, and now we see where we are compared to the rest of the country. When it comes to voter status, that we are one of the few states that has access to the federal database. We've asked for it, and so that's why, and we've had it since 2012. So that's why you don't see where we're taking lots of people off the rolls, because we've been managing it for 12 years. In fact, the Secretary of State, Cord Bird, has testified in front of Congress, and that they don't update the list enough to where we can go in and pull those lists. And so, but then again, some of the information isn't always accurate on it. I know there's a supervisor's office that has someone who's been naturalized as a U.S. citizen, and it still shows that they're not, and it's been years. And so, but again, it's a place for us to start and compare our lists. I know there were some questions about registration. So when we do get a registration, we inspect the form to make sure that it's filled out, and then we send it to the state to verify the authenticity of the information contained within. So we don't have those resources to do that. So they check and validate that U.S. citizen, all those things, send it back to us to process. So that's how we check when there's a voter registered. In terms of, all right, so you mentioned ES&S. That is the system that we use. So the state of Florida does have a bureau that tests all equipment before it can be used in an election. And so, there are 2 tabulation systems that are approved. You are required to use a tabulation system in the state of Florida. So one is ES&S, which we use, and about 47 or so of the 67 counties use ES&S. The other is Dominion, but again, that has gone through the same testing through the state of Florida in order to be put in place. To give a little bit of an example of I won't say how strict they are, but how that works is that in 2022, David had acquired an audit system called Clear Ballot. This is the system that we finally got to use in March. We scan 100% of the ballots through that independent system from the tabulator, and then we compare the results to what the tabulator showed from the election day and early vote and vote by mail. So when we acquired the equipment in 22, they said, hey, we've got new software, but you want the new software? Well, yeah, we want the new software. We don't want the old software. The problem was the new software had not been approved by the state yet. So even though this was a system that has been used in Santa Rosa County, the new version hadn't been approved, so we actually couldn't use it officially in the election. So we got to do it in March and in August, and it's worked as designed. So previously, when we would audit the election after we certify the results, we would pick one race from 2 precincts and hand count those. I would say that of all the ones I was involved in 2020, when they gave us that slip of paper with the total, it did not match what we had. And so we'd hand it back to them. We don't tell them what we're trying to hit. We hand it back to them and say, try again. And inevitably, somebody put one of them in the wrong pile or miscounted or something like that. So they would count again. We found it. It goes over here. They'd give it to us, and it would match. But now we scan as part of our process as we start to begin vote by mail processing. They'll be scanned through the tabulator and then scanned through this audit system, and then they go into their sealed boxes to be stored. After early vote, we do it a couple times throughout this time would be 2 weeks. We'll scan them, so hopefully by election day, we've scanned all those into the audit system, and then we'll take a few days after the election and scan all the election day ballots into the system. And so what we do is we compile the results from the 2 systems and compare them and look for any discrepancies. And we do that with 100% of the ballots, 100% of the races, 100% of the precincts. So it is every ballot is counted, and we compare those 1 to 1.
The machine you use to compare, just for my edification.
Sure.
You got your one tabulator, but you're using another one that it's not,
It's independent.
it's independent
Yes,
from this and not the same vendor or anything.
Correct.
This one's to check that other one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I got with the program.
And so, in March it went well. In August, we did have some discrepancies, but we're able to say what each of those are. At one of the election day precincts, there was a ballot that got run through the machine twice. So it had been entered, it got jammed, and they missed that it had been tabulated. And so when they unjammed it, instead of just letting it fall into the bin, they ran it again. They realized that may have happened, so they let us know. So we were expecting that there was going to be an extra ballot versus how many voters there were. And of course, when we ran that batch through the clear ballot, we were able to tell exactly how that voter voted, because there were 3 races that had 1 extra vote than, or 1 less vote than, right? So we knew exactly what it was, but again, it didn't change anything. And then there were 6 others. And so this is where the difference between the coding and things like that happened, was that, so the machine takes an image of the ballot, and then if there's a question, we go to a computer, the canvassing board, again, that's myself, a county judge, and then a representative from the county commissioners. In this case, it's the director of the animal control. And we review and we see if we can determine the voter's intent. And so on 5 of those contests, we were able to assign a vote that the tabulator had not been able to. So, and when I say that, was that their bubble was outside the oval, but it just barely touched the oval enough that we were able to say that it was the voters' intent to vote for that candidate. It didn't touch another oval, and so we were able to assign that vote to a candidate where the tabulator didn't. There was one contest where the voter crossed through the candidate's name, but one of the cross marks extended through the oval. And so that we had to take away the vote. So those were the 6 differences plus the 3 from the extra scan.
Now, you said that person crossed that out, like, okay, why did the machine spit that one out? Because that would be a mark that would not be in the oval, so that would have, did it spit it out, that spits it out, so you know that? If they fill
So
it
the
wrong?
machine does not spit it out if one contest is marked correctly.
Okay,
And it wasn't an overvote. If it was an overvote,
okay,
it would have spit it out no matter if other races are done, as long as, but the thing, so it saw it as a vote.
it did, okay.
The tabulator saw it as a vote because that line had gone through the oval.
Okay.
But when you look at the image, you can see that they had really scratched through the name and just part of the scratch mark went through the oval. And so the state has,
Computer did what it was supposed to do.
right, and it did.
It
And that's the thing, is that
measures
they're
the ball.
still,
That's what it's supposed to
it doesn't look at much or whatever else, and so, we have, guidelines from the state that talk about voter intent, and that's what we follow, and that's how we're able to determine, how there's a vote. So, so again, in 2020, I was part of, in the general election, we had the city council, District 1 race between Jennifer Brayer and PC Wu, that on election night had a 5-vote difference. So that took us to an automatic recount, still had a 5-vote difference after the recount, which then took us to the manual recount. And so we were able to determine that there were 2 votes that had been cast, or had been counted as an overvote, where the voter's intent was to vote for PC. So again, this was on election day or early vote, where they had filled in the oval for Jennifer, put an X through it, and then filled one in for PC. We actually showed, well,
Normally that would have been a straight
right,
ballot, right?
yeah. Well, they could still, I mean, the voter can still vote it, and that's what happens, is that if it comes down to a recount, we look at that and try to determine if the voter intent is there. And, David showed them to Jennifer Brayer, and she goes, yeah, those are 2 votes for my opponent. I mean, she agreed that those were votes for PC, and so she ended up winning by 3 votes.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then, of course, that we knew there were a number of overseas military ballots that were still out there. Federally, they have 10 days to get to us. After the election, they have to be postmarked by election day, but they have those 10-day ballots. So they were on pins and needles the last few days to see if any of those ballots came in and swayed it, but we didn't get any. I would say, we do have that 10-day option. If we get 20 or 30 of those ballots after election day, that's a lot. So we're not talking hundreds that come in. Again, they have to be postmarked by election day in order for those to be counted. So, any questions? I know you guys probably have some, but I'd be happy to. Okay.
I have one. Recently, I think it was Arizona passed a law that all of the counties have to, I guess, confirm that they're okay with their count, and that there was no fraudulent behavior or whatever, before the state can certify. And so my question is, because in Pennsylvania in the 2020 election, you hear all about, at 2 a.m. all of a sudden the blue votes went straight to the ceiling. If that happened in the state of Florida, is there some kind of mechanism or procedure to say, hey, wait a minute, this looks really odd, we need to look at this?
So I think that's where, again, Florida's set themselves apart from other states. Now that I've completed the logic and accuracy test, I can start canvassing those vote by mail ballots. We've sent out close to 30,000 vote by mail ballots. We sent out 3,200 to military overseas. We have one of the largest, those are called UACAVA. We have one of the largest UACAVA batches, I'm told, in the country. And then we sent out another 1,000 by email, again, to military overseas voters. And then on Monday, so last Thursday was the first day that I could have mailed them out domestically. but because of the storm essentially along the Gulf Coast, we all waited until Monday, to mail out our ballots, and we sent out 26,500. And so, so the fact that as those come in, I can go ahead and open them and have those results ready to go on election night. And so let me talk about vote by mail, is that in 22, the state of Florida, again, this is where the state of Florida is making changes and leading the country by example, is that it used to be that a vote by mail request was valid for 2 general election cycles. So if I made the request in 2020, it allowed me to I would automatically get that vote by mail ballot in 22. But so in 12/31/22, all of the requests were wiped clean, and everyone has to now make a request for every general election cycle, and you also have to give your driver's license or the last 4 of your social to do that. So, so those are again, some additional steps, that security steps that the state of Florida is taking. But the fact that I can, open those beforehand allows me to focus on election day on election day. I'm not trying to open all of these ballots. We'll probably meet 10 to 12 days between now and election day, and we'll have a group of about 6 to 8 people help our staff open those ballots, and we're able to handle, the 25,000 or so ballots that we'll probably get back. So again, in August, because I'm already able to count those, the only things that I'll really have on election day are the ones that come in the morning of. We also make a run at 5 o'clock to get anything else that's come in throughout the day from the post office, again, trying to make sure that everybody has them. But if I don't have that ballot in my hand by 7 p.m., then it doesn't get counted. So again, that's where Florida's, leading by example. But in August, at 7:03, I posted the results for the early vote and the vote by mail, which was about 60% of the vote. So 3 minutes after the polls closed, 60% of the vote is posted. The only little bit of change that there's gonna be, and the state has us report how many are still outstanding. We have to send reports throughout the night. So I actually have 30 minutes to get that data out to the state and upload it. And so hopefully, we did learn a little bit in March. We were trying to get that 5 o'clock batch run right before 7 o'clock. So it took us till about 7:20 to get those results first posted. And so in August, we said, we're not trying that again. We'll handle it later in the evening. It's not gonna be too many of them. And so we wanna focus on getting the information out at 7 o'clock as quickly as we can. And then our precincts modem the results to us. They're unofficial results. It's really just to get us to get that information out quicker. So by 7:45, I had 77 of my 80 precincts that reported. We did have issue with 3 of them, so they grab the sticks and they bring them down. But again, was that 98% of our vote was posted by 7:45, and I think we were out by 10:30. 10:30, 11. We're just waiting on everybody to bring all the equipment back to us. So we don't have these middle of the night count parties and things like that, right? And so, of course, we still require a paper ballot, and we do see more states going back to that. States or counties going back to paper ballots. And again, if I have any outstanding vote by mail ballots that need to be counted, something like that, I report that to the state before I go home at night. So, yes, ma'am.
So, for Dominion, in Arizona, they had employees of Dominion on site at the polling locations with keys and passwords and access that nobody else, not the workers or observers or anybody, knew about or had access to. And, do you prevent that in Florida?
So we do have somebody from ES&S on site. They're usually in our warehouse with us. For instance, in August, we had a machine that wouldn't boot up. So we sent them there to try to help that machine. We ended up having to replace the machine. But usually they're there to assist the poll workers in walking them through the status of closing. We do have override codes and things like that only staff have, that we may give to them if they're going on site to work on something, but again, I don't know, you know, it's, I think for what we see, you know, we have people from both parties that are poll workers. We make sure all of our numbers match at the end of the night, and I think that's the one thing that, again, sets Florida apart, and especially my colleagues and I around the state. If we're one vote off, we wanna figure out why. And that is, I don't know if it's in the water, if that's just the way we're bred, but, I think we all share that.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to, it's the way to do it.
It's not wrong, you're doing
Right.
it right, baby.
Right.
If you got one, and listen, we counted sponges when we used to operate on people, and there's a big reason we did. We didn't wanna
Right.
miss any of them darn things.
Exactly.
Yes, sir, count them all.
And so, but just as important as counting the votes is also the voter history. So we spent 3 weeks after the August primary going through, trying to determine which voters sort of threw their ballot at us and said they didn't wanna vote that party and walked out the door, we actually had one where a husband and wife checked in at the same time, and the wife got checked in at both stations. So we had 111 voters that were shown to have checked in. We had 112 slips of paper where they had taken it to the ballot issuer to get a ballot. We had 112 ballots, and we couldn't figure it out. We went through all the voter history of everyone all 112 tickets, and it showed that everyone was being shown to have voted, and it wasn't until we put it in alpha order did we realize that there were two of the same person. The husband's signature was on one, the wife's signature was on the other, so we were able to assign, to show that the husband did vote, and then it matched. So again, all things that we work on after the election.
So with the voting, when you start tallying up those vote by mails and stuff, is that getting posted somewhere where people can see it?
No.
So there's no way for the Democrats to say, well, like the Republicans already have 10,000 votes, we need to insert 10,000.
So-
We need to
So
press
we
in
can-
400.
I just wanna make sure the dead voters aren't voting in the
Right.
election.
That's
my other
heard. We
Sure.
heard that at the conference.
Yeah.
From the people that the Democrats calculate how much we've pre-voted, how many
Sure.
Republicans,
So-
and then they can cheat above that.
Well, so I can do, like if I pulled up my website right now, I could show you how many people how many ballots we've accepted, right? I don't show the results, and I can show you, probably by party, how many people have turned, you know, there's data that we have, that shows that. It doesn't show the results, but again, if it's a general election, you're probably voting party line, and so they could take a guess. But I do and it updates every 10 minutes, so if you're actually watching the website as my person's sitting in there checking in those ballots, then you would see that number tick up every 10 minutes, from what we had. So we do have that. The results, I don't even see the results until election night.
So how do you prevent dead voters voting by mail? Is there a way to prevent that? I guess it's probably a silly question, but.
Well, so
that's a
again,
lot.
it's list maintenance, right? I mean, again, they've had to request it in the last year and a half.
Mhm.
We get, information from DMV, we get information from, vital statistics, we get information from Social Security. And actually, I'm working on something to where, we'll be able to access vital statistics by like, if you just called and said, hey, so-and-so died, and you give us their date of death, we have their date of birth, and give us their name, then we can go in and validate that, and that should be enough for us to remove that voter, because it does sometimes take some time for us to get that information. But I would say this, I mean, of course, if that does happen, then, the election crimes, they do go after people, and I've assisted in investigations, just in my short few months, and I think that's, again, where Florida's taking that next step in doing that.
And then how do you prevent people from going into the nursing home? Is there some way to do that? Because some of these people are just not capable of making
Right.
that.
So we do incapacitated voters and things like that, we do get that list from the clerk, but it's
It's a big
you know,
world.
yeah, I mean, it's something that we do keep an eye on,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I might vote by mail.
Yeah.
But how does this work? When you sign it
Sure.
and stuff, do you like compare this to your computer, like what, you have a file and then you open it?
Yes.
Like that process?
Sure. So when that comes in, it'll be, scanned in, it'll sort of be run, it'll be put in a batch. We do batches of about 250. And it's given the number in the batch and things like that. A staff member, we don't do AI or anything like that. We have a staff member will then pull it and compare it to the signature on file.
Before you open it?
Before you open it. So if the signature doesn't match, if there is no signature, it never gets opened.
That's right.
So our decision to open a ballot is, and if you also look on there, it doesn't tell you anything about what party. It'll say your voter ID number and your precinct. And
do I have to put my email?
Hold it up,
and all
Kathy, so
that?
we
Yeah.
can see.
Sure. So
Or let him hold it up.
Yeah. You wanna?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have
So I'll
to
just do this. So actually, I'm gonna help this too. You haven't voted yet?
No.
Okay.
I don't know.
So this is the secrecy sleeve. There are instructions on vote by mail on the secrecy sleeve. So, one of the things that I've added, is because a lot of people weren't putting this down, was that providing contact information on your return envelope will allow us to contact you if there is an issue with your signature or envelope. Because I didn't want to put ballot, because if it's an issue with your ballot, I don't know that until I've opened it, and by the time I've done that, I've already separated the ballot from the envelope, and I have no idea who it is.
There you go.
Right, so that's why I've said if there's a signature on envelope, so we've had ballots that come back where they've been torn, you know, we actually do a little investigative work. I was pretty bad. We had one that came back and it was taped all over it. It had been ripped in half. The ballot was taped, the envelope was taped, but I peeled the tape back and the postmark came off of the tape. So that told me that it happened before it went into the it went into the post office.
Into the box, yeah.
And so we tried to contact the voter, we never heard from them, so we ended up accepting it because we felt like, because the tape was there before they stamped it, that it may have, you know, maybe the voter ripped it or something like that. And we'll sort of kind of look at the tear and we're like, okay, is there a way that they could have gotten this ballot out? You know, and we'll hold it until the 2 days after the election, to see if we get some information from the voter, see what they want to do. But we definitely try to contact it. So the idea is that, any information provided will not be added to your voter record. So this is strictly so that as the person is looking at your signature, and if there's an issue with it, they've got your contact information right here to contact you. So if the signature doesn't match, it's put off to the side. We contact you about doing a cure affidavit. And so this is relatively new. I say new, but it hasn't always been this way, right? Before, if the signatures didn't match, off to the side.
Okay.
So now we do have the way for the voter to cure the affidavit, and cure the ballot, and to where we accept it. And then the other thing that happens is that the canvassing board will go through all the ones that have not been accepted, and we look at signatures. So, you know, when you go to vote and you sign the keypad, we capture that signature and it gets added to your file. So we'll go back and look at that. We've all had training from on signature verification. Anybody watch Pawn Stars?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how they have the guy come in and compare George Washington's signature
yeah,
to see if it's
yeah.
authentic?
Yeah.
Okay, he's the guy that taught the class, so I got to
wow.
take it.
Wow.
I got to take it in 2019, and all the Florida Supervisor of Elections, everybody who was working on the canvassing board went down to a conference in 2019, and he got up and taught the class. It's now taught online, not quite as much fun, but we all go through signature training. So there's height ratio, there's, you know, how you write along the baseline. So even as you age, some of your characteristics will remain the same. So again, if I have signatures dating back from when you registered to every time you voted, and I can compare those over, you know, we can make determinations if it is actually the voter signature or not. And I will tell you, there are some that look nothing alike that you can look at and go, yeah, that was not happening. You know, and there are others where we will have a discussion and take it to the vote if we think it is. Now, again, we've contacted the voter to have them do this cure affidavit so that, you know, I mean, our job is to try to make every vote, you know, people's voices heard and be counted. But we also have to make sure that we're doing everything right.
Thank you.
Okay.
How do you think it's going to affect, voting with the, hurricane damage and the people who don't
Sure.
have an address now?
I will say, so, I think in the governor's order today, he actually gave, supervisors in Florida some leeway, what to do. I know, I've read some of the emails that have gone back and forth on things that we've asked for. And so, of course, we're doing things to, again, make it easiest way possible. I know one supervisor had asked for, essentially being able to have voting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, up through election day, and things like that. I will tell you, having the LNA today, I haven't been able to read the order that came out, so I don't know exactly what was included in that. But if you're talking about North Carolina, things like that, we've talked to the USPS, because inevitably I probably had one of my 25,000 ballots get sent up there. And so the USPS is working on that. I'm gonna start having weekly calls with them. And so they'll assess it if they can, they'll hold it at some place and try to get it to somebody when they can. But definitely those more rural areas that were impacted, my guess is that it'll be similar to what happened after Hurricane Michael. They again did some unprecedented steps. I would say the supervisor maybe gave himself a little bit of liberty and just said, come after me if you want to, but this is what I'm doing to make sure that the people can vote. And that was those things like having it open all that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sunday is an option, but especially that Monday. And you can come after me if you want, but I'm gonna give everybody a chance to vote. So, and that was the thing is I was told, I don't know this for sure, but I think a lot of ballots were in the mail during Hurricane Michael.
Yeah.
And that's why we ended up holding last week, because, we were gonna be sending people to Tallahassee, things like that. And so, and actually someone from North Carolina, a military voter did say that, actually he was from Georgia, said that his ballot got wet, and what to do, because it had some yellow staining. I said, just send it back. If it doesn't read, we duplicate that ballot, so we have poll workers that will be in when we're tabulating those votes. They'll get a new ballot, they mark it, we put a personal identifying number on it so that we can go back to the original ballot if we need to, and then it comes to the canvassing board. We review it to make sure that the votes are the same, and then it's run through and counted through the machine. Another question? Okay.
How do you make sure that, or how, can non-citizens register to vote? Can non-citizens vote?
So, can I sit here and say that we don't have any on our rolls? I can't, right? I mean, I'm not, but, right, do we do everything we can to keep them off? Yes, and I will say that, we had one that they said they were not a citizen, and in the rush to we have hundreds of them that we've done, and during that rush a few years ago, they got registered. But again, I know that, they arrested somebody during a naturalization ceremony because he had voted 10 years earlier. I mean, so again, it's not something that we forget about. And
Did he
again,
still get naturalized?
I think he did, but, it was, right. And so, again, to sit here and say that we don't have any, but we have definitely taken steps to, and again, we have that federal database. I think we're one of 5, is what they told me, states that have asked for that. And that's what we're using to.
Why wouldn't all states want that?
And again, that's what Florida's legal table.
And is the data, can you trust the database?
Well, and that's what I was saying, so as with anything, any data we get, so another thing that the state of Florida has started to do is send us driver's licenses from people that have surrendered it in other states. And so, we don't just take that data and remove a voter. We contact the voter. So it may be a military voter who needs to get a new driver's license, and so just because they've gotten a new driver's license doesn't mean they've lost their right to vote in Florida. But as with anything, we get the information and then we contact the voter. One of the other things that Florida did was we would send out cards to voters that say, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, checking to make sure you're still want to register. If they didn't respond, we couldn't do anything. But the state of Florida changed that, is that if we sent something out and we didn't get a proactive response, then we start a process where we move them to inactive. And they can remain inactive for 2 general election cycles, and then they get removed from the roll. So We have 212,000 active voters right now. We have which is about 20,000 fewer voters than we had in 2020. But we have about 47,000 inactive voters. So in the second half of last year, I think we moved like 17 or 19,000 voters to that inactive status because of that. The other thing that we did it right after the presidential preference in March was we take our database and compare it to the national change of address. That has to be completed by May 1st of every year. But we had to do it, make sure it was 90 days before the August primary.
What is that? I haven't heard of that.
So you know when you move and you fill out with the US Postal Service that change of address?
Yeah.
So we take that whole database and then compare it to ours to see if there's a match. And so that's one way that initializes something for us to contact a voter to say, hey, are you still here? Do you need to change your address? Have you moved out of state? Have you moved out of county? Something like that. And then if that mail gets returned to us, then that starts that inactive process at all because it's mail is not forwarded.
So once because we get this question at gallery night when we're registering
Yep.
voters. Once they, like say they're in Georgia and then they've moved here, but they haven't changed their registration, are they still able to vote in Georgia or are they required to vote here once they change that address?
Well, they're required to vote here, right? I mean, that's the affidavit that you sign is, I think if you've read it, that it says that I'm still, at the address and that I'm still, so the attestation is, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I am a qualified and registered voter of Escambia County, Florida, and that I have not and will not vote more than one ballot in this election. I understand that if I commit or attempt to commit any fraud in connection with voting, vote a fraudulent ballot or vote more than once in an election, I can be convicted of a felony of the 3rd degree and fined up to $5,000 and/or imprisoned for up to 5 years. I also understand that failure to sign the certificate will invalidate my ballot. So again, when you go to the polls and you sign that pad, they'll ask you, do you still live at this address? And you're attesting to that. So, and of course, some people as they're moving in, if they move in after that October 7th deadline, they can't register to vote here. Of course, if you're already registered in Florida and you move to another county, you can transfer that registration. But yeah. Yes, ma'am.
We were told at the EVID training, the inactive, all they have to do is tell you,
Correct.
I'm still here and press yes and.
Yes, so they're still registered, they're just in an inactive status, and that's that
So
thing.
when do they go?
After the second general election, so, it's funny, we've had a number of people that, we've sent sample ballots to via email. One, you'd be surprised how many people think that's a ballot that I'm sending them, even though it's got sample about 10 different places. So I've had to say, let me be clear, it's a sample ballot, it's not a live ballot that I've just emailed you, it's a sample ballot. And actually, a lot of the ones that write back are in that inactive status, and they said, hey, I moved, and I said, okay, you're right. I said, in June of 2022, you were moved to inactive, because we may have gotten that national change of address, and we saw that you were dead. So they were inactive for the 2022, and then they would be inactive for the 2024, and if they don't update their voter registration, vote, or request a vote by mail ballot, then they get removed. So if, again, this person who hasn't done it, and then after the 2024 general election, he would be removed as a registered voter of Florida.
Okay.
So, but again, the other thing is that that pops up, but you're still confirming that you're at that, you're confirming that's where you are, because we want to make sure they're at the right precinct, especially on election day. And if they are, if they've moved,
But
then
the license doesn't have to match or anything, the address doesn't have to match anything, they just say, yeah.
Again, they'd have to have some type of ID to do that, but yes.
Just a photo ID.
Correct, photo ID, signature ID, and that's the same thing, are you still at this address? Yeah.
So you take that.
And then if they vote,
Yeah.
then they move automatically
They
into
move
active, back into
They
active
move back in
status.
active status,
But if
yeah.
they don't, they're automatically
Right.
removed after two general
Correct.
elections, so.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Will we get sample ballots before early voting?
Yes, ma'am. So one, I want to apologize for that. So the day we were supposed to get the sample ballots out, we were getting a new roof, and at 12 o'clock, it started raining, 12:15, it started raining. The roofers had pried the drain out, and when they did, it took the drain out of the drain pipe. So I had a 4-inch pipe that went into my file room. And so Sonia, who was working on it, was drenched head to toe. So we got that out a day late. It then took the printer an extra day or two to get it done, and then took the USPS an extra day. And you can't put them in the mail on Saturday because it's the bulk mailing. So, we try to walk that fine line of getting it right before early voting, but not too early to where you forget about it. And so everybody took an extra day, and so we were a couple days late. So I said, all right, that's not happening again. So we walked backwards from where we wanted it and made our deadlines there. So they're currently being printed.
Okay.
The idea is that we will mail them next Wednesday, if he can get them all printed. So people will start to get them the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. But everybody should have them in their mailbox by October 14th. And then that's a full week before early voting, 3 weeks before election day. One of the things that I put on there was, as a voter tip, was to mark the ballot and bring it in with you. So that way, we do have 6 constitutional amendments plus the half-cent sales tax for the county. And so that's, and listen, you may not believe me, but I'm within the state guidelines on the font. And we made the ballot fit a front and back page by about this much. That's about how much room we had by being able to get the half-cent sales tax on that third column, because amendments 3 and 4 are on the back. They each take up their own column, so we were able to get 5, 6, and the half-cent on the third column. And so that really makes things a lot easier on poll workers and everybody else trying to keep up with the 2 ballots. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain why there was a runoff in the school board?
Sure. So in your nonpartisan races, so like your city council, so let's talk about city council, we'll talk about mayor from 2022, and your school board. So if a candidate gets more than 50% plus 1 vote in a primary, then they're deemed to have been elected. So that happened in 22 with Mayor Reeves. I think he got 53% of the vote. And so he surpassed that 50% mark. And so he's deemed elected, and he didn't go on to the general election. Because the only way it appears on the primary ballot is if you have more than 2 candidates in the race. So if there's
it's only on nonpartisan.
Only on nonpartisan races. So again, if there's only 2 candidates, which are like the 2 city council races, they're both going to the general election, because hopefully someone's gonna get at least 50% plus that 1. There was, I think, the supervisor of elections race where I saw where it was actually, it was like 30,000 votes, and they both had the same number of votes in election night. So hopefully someone's gonna get more than 50, someone will have to get 50% plus 1 there. But then if there's more than 2, then it gets moved to the primary. If someone gets more than 50%, then they're deemed elected. If not, then the top 2 go to the runoff. Yes, ma'am.
What percentage of Republicans, and you can pick, vote in Escambia County local elections? Do you know that? Or the state, for that matter? What percentage of, we got 100% of them registered.
Right.
And I know you have that somewhere, so I was hoping you.
I do.
Okay.
I know it off the top of my
Plenty
head.
of time.
So I know that we had about, I think 50.
Yeah, because you just had the local in August, so
Right.
that was, I thought it was 60%, but I just wanted to ask you.
So, if you go to the website and go to elections and election results, we have, unofficial turnout, things like that. It looks like I lost it for, let me see what it's on here.
While you're looking for that, was just gonna say and tell everybody, the sample ballot is on the website.
It is,
too.
yes. So we did put the sample ballot up as soon as it was ready. It was up. We emailed it to people. Again, I've gotten a lot of, I got a 2-word response earlier today just by sending the sample ballot. And I don't understand. It's a sample ballot. And I said, let me be clear, it's not a live ballot. We're not sending you, anyway. So if I go to, so I have to pull up the 2022, we had 63,499 Republicans, voted, and that it was just overall turnout was 51%.
Okay.
The Republicans made up 54% of everyone who voted. So I was looking at the numbers back there. We actually we registered 2,000 voters in the month of September. Our book close, again, registration deadline is October 7th. We'll have a couple days to process all those applications that come in at the last minute. And then we compare our numbers to the state. So in August, we were a perfect, one for one with what the state had us. And so that was, we were excited about that. We did an early book close practice run. We were off. They give us a certain percent that we can be off, because again, inevitably you have things that are in transit, or things that they've done that we don't have, or we process someone, or and so they allow us to be off a little bit. But let's look at the so the 2020 general election. By party, we had 82,951 Republicans of the 171,000 that voted for Republicans. So, and that was almost 74% turnout.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
My edification.
Sure.
Write-ins.
Yes.
Okay, now, I'm this person that was taught that if you know, and they say that on your ballot, if you make a mark, it'll spit it out. And I asked how they did write-ins. And what I was told was that they are treated differently because they're write-ins, and that they're not counted unless a race is close. And I said, well, and I couldn't find out who determines what's a close race or whatever, because I was trying to look up, because people had asked me, well, if you write it in, will a computer kick it out, because it's cursive, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I just wanted you to edify
Sure.
that for me.
So on election night, you'll see the write-ins, and that will count the number of times that bubble was filled in
As
as a write-in.
a write-in.
So, so what happens is the tabulator takes an image of the write-in box, and then we go through and tally. So, because if you think about it, in District 1, the presidential, there's more than one write-in candidate. There's only one slot. So how would you know? So the other thing is, so 2020, we did have a write-in candidate in the general election against Pam Childers, and I think that it was something like 4,000 votes were shown on election night as a write-in.
Okay.
When we went through and actually tallied them, about 10% of those were actually for the candidate.
Okay.
The other 90% were Mickey Mouse, any other living human, Jesus.
So there's no down voting if they decided they didn't want to write something in. See, my thing of it is the reason I'm asking this, they were threatening to take Trump off the ballot, they were threatening to take, and they're Kennedy, and everybody's fighting to get on the ballot, and I'm like, well, people are gonna write in if their candidate isn't on the ballot and they want it.
So in
that's
Florida,
the question.
you have to register to be a qualified write-in candidate at qualifying time.
Oh.
And so that's
like
how.
with, Prakash
Yes.
in District 1.
In
there
District
were
1.
there was
Two write-ins, right, so they have to qualify by the qualifying deadline, and then that's how we know who to count.
Who's really
Right.
in the running,
Right.
because they're qualified.
Because we really don't want Mickey Mouse to win the election. You'd be surprised, you'd be surprised how many people write that.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
also the fact that we had states saying they weren't gonna put our candidate on the ballot,
Right.
makes you want to be more interested, because I'm sorry, if they took my candidate off the ballot, I'm gonna write it in.
Sure, and again, different states have different laws.
Correct, that's
I mean,
right.
there are some states that do qualifying after the primary. I mean, you saw that in some other states, so again,
Yeah.
so we make everybody qualify before the primary, that's how we know who's on the ballot, for the primary, who's going on in the general, and then we know how, and then, again, we have some, if we can tell that if there's a misspelling or something like that, if again, we're looking at voter intent, if they're trying to, and I'll say this, Chase Andy Romagnano, he was the write-in, that's a mouthful, and so if we could tell that's who it was, we would give some
I just
discretion.
try to get in on every single one.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want.
But you said you got like 4,000, that was just for the whole county, you would say that many.
That was, right, but again, that's them filling in the bubble and writing in whatever they wanna write in.
When I went to the poll, I poll watched, so
Yep.
that was, I'm learning. And, I asked the guy about blank ballots, and I thought, blank ballots, did something happen where it just spits it out? But he says, no, that people will come in and they want to be known to have come in to vote.
Mhm.
And they will take a ballot, and they put it in and it's empty. And there's a little thing comes up on the computer that says, do you really want this
Yep.
to go
That's
through?
right.
And it asks the
It's a no.
person,
Mhm.
you know, cause I thought, how did it get through there? See, I'm thinking
So-
of watching my stuff,
so it
and
get
he
like
says
a
you push
protest.
the button,
Yeah.
and it'll take it through, and that comes out counted as a blank ballot, which makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well,
So-
somebody may not wanna vote, but they may not want anybody else to vote in their place.
So-
Okay, I was
Well,
wondering
no,
about
yeah.
the process.
So I'll tell you, I was making the rounds on election day in the primary, and there was a lady at the precinct that got her ballot and walked right over to the machine and put it in, and it said, "This is a blank ballot, do you wanna cast this?" She goes, "No, I forgot to vote." So it spit it out, and she went and voted. So the other, this is why I said earlier, if there's one valid race, so, and listen, what we'll see, especially this year, is there will be people that come in and only vote for the president.
Correct.
Or only vote for the president, senator, and congressman,
Right.
and then they'll turn,
Leave the
as I
rest of it
said,
out.
I have yet to have anybody come in and just vote the amendments.
Yeah.
So, but the idea is that as long as there's one race that's marked properly, it will accept it without
Okay,
rejecting it.
That's good.
Right,
That makes
so as
sense.
long as there's that one race, it won't reject it. If the rest of them are blank, and honestly, that's a lot of what our test deck was, once we sort of kinda get that distribution number that we need, we leave the rest blank.
Just so you can count.
Just so we can count them and see that it's going. And so that's how that gets counted, but if there's not a race that's properly marked, it spit it up, and so.
And when they put out the, I don't know what it's called, but they'll have overvotes, undervotes, blanks and all that, and that's where you that just puts out. how
Right, so
many.
that's the undervote, and so we don't, necessarily report that on election night.
Okay,
We just report everything else, but we do report it to the state.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How about drop boxes?
Sure. So-
Where do
So
you
the state gave them a fancy name, the secure intake boxes, stations. In the state, yeah, so ours are only at early vote sites and in my office. So I have it right down now, so if you wanted to go down to my office and say, hey, I want my mail ballot, you could fill it out in the office and drop it in right there in our office. The 10 locations that we'll have on early voting, a poll worker, the deputy, it's manned. So, we used to have them where they were chained, but now, so if the poll deputy has to go into the bathroom and he's the only one there, he wheels it into the voting area, he says, hey guys, I gotta step in for a minute, here's this, and then he comes back, gets it, and takes it back out front. So,
They did 2020, though they're watched,
Yep.
and you can't, I went to 6 of them, and I opened them and tried to stick my fingers in them, cause they said that you couldn't get more than one, possibly shove a tube in there.
Right.
But you can't bring 5 or 6 ballots and shove them in there, and I know that they were that way,
But
cause I
they
couldn't
did
get my
have 'em.
fingers in them.
They did have those where they just put a whole bunch, a whole stack on them.
But then the way they fix the boxes now, you
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
so again, in Florida, you can only have 2 that are outside
Outside
your family.
Right.
That you can bring in. I'll say this though, is that, where we are with the mail system that we have, if you put them in the blue mailbox at the end of the corner, I'm gonna get it the next day. Again, I mean, if somebody were to do it, they could go do it, but I don't think they're gonna come to the early vote site where you have a poll worker standing right there to try to do it, but again, that's where, as we say, listen, our poll workers, they're as much of a physical security as anything, right? So, when you talk about people that try to bring in extra ballots, our poll worker's not gonna let you sit there and just feed ballots into the machine.
They are watching.
They are watching, and again, we would know, cause our numbers would add up at the end of the night, we're gonna review the ballots, we're gonna say like, hey, these aren't our ballots, and we're gonna take those out and run them again. So it's again, that's why we have that checks and balances and everything's checked 3 or 4 different ways and times, to make sure it all works out. Yes, ma'am?
I'm banned from being a watcher.
Yeah, you mentioned that, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I am.
Who would know?
No, I
She
wasn't
asked a
talking-
question.
I
Harassment.
contested something that happened there, and the guy who was the guy who was overseeing everything.
The clerk.
Wrote me up. I asked, the guy, there were actually three of them came in, they said they got a mail-in ballot, but they wanna, vote there and the people, the workers asked, well, where's the ballot? And they said, at home. I questioned that. And I said, why can't they vote here when they have a mail-in ballot and leave it at home? They were just telling them, rip it up. But because I questioned it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with your case, I don't know.
I guarantee
so-
Can we get her unbanned?
Yeah.
We need her to be able to watch.
Question. It comes to
So we do, but we do have a new process. So one, all right, I'm gonna see your ballot again. So this is something that I was able to add, that, because we have some
You
new.
can talk to the deputies in the courts. You cannot talk to voters, you cannot wear any.
So I've added this V on all the vote by mail
Can
ballots.
talk to them.
It's like an official box, and this V tells me, A, that it's a vote by mail ballot.
No.
But if you try to take this into the precinct or early vote site to vote, you cannot get it through the machine.
Good.
So I had one of these in each packet that we ran in our logic and accuracy test today. It spits it out and says, go see the clerk, not a valid vote. So the other, it works twofold. So on election day though, is that this box is blank. And then if a provisional voter comes in and votes, the clerk can check this box and can let the provisional voter go vote. And if the provisional voter tried to go over and put it in the machine, it's gonna spit it out and say, no, you gotta go see the clerk. So this is, again, this is an extra layer of security that we've been able to put in this year. Now, I didn't have a problem, I mean, again, if anyone's been a poll worker before, you know how we check numbers at the end. So we didn't have a problem of people doing it, but I had the ability to do it, so why not do it? Right? So again, something that this was what we added in the August election, this got added.
Now, I will say in the primary, I got my vote by mail ballot, and I always vote by mail because I'm retired military. And, when I got it, this envelope, when I opened it up, it ripped everything. So then I was like, oh God, I called the office and they were like, it's okay to tape it, and I was kinda nervous about it, that it wouldn't count, and I wanna make sure my vote counts. So I ended up going into the precinct and voting in person, and they said the same thing, just rip it out.
So we also have a new, process, so again, if you don't bring it in with you, it's okay. If you do, you surrender it. We've created envelopes this year. One, the state changed the rule on how to handle it, so we created envelopes. We say who it is, they hand it to us, we actually, the voter needs to rip it up, we can't just put it in full, so they have to rip it up, and then it puts it in its own envelope. It used to be they would go in an envelope of like 30 or something like that, so if it's a spoiled ballot or a surrendered vote by mail ballot, it gets put in its own envelope. Again, we don't open them, we would tell voters, hey, go ahead and fill in as many bubbles as you want, so that nobody, you know, the thing is, I don't wanna touch a voter's ballot after we've given it to them. I don't want a poll worker to touch it. We had somebody who came over from Louisiana, she was really excited that they were able to put their ballots into the tabulators as opposed to having to hand it to a poll worker to do it, things like that. So they felt that the process was much more secure in the fact that, you know, we're standing there and just saying, yep, put it in right here. So I think, again, something that we do that because I don't want to touch it, I don't want the voter to think that I'm looking at how they voted. And so we were able to work out a process with the state to where the voter could rip the ballot, put it in the envelope, and then we could issue them a new one. Yes.
I just had a quick question. I've been a poll worker the last couple of general election cycles, and for early voting, is the shutdown at night pretty much the same? Cause I know we compare votes between ballots issued and what the machine says and what the EVID check-in is all throughout the day, and then we pull the sticks and we secure the machines and we, you know, is that the same for all through early voting?
The difference is that we don't get the results every night, right? So we just shut down the machine, we don't close it out, we just shut it down. We grab the ballots, we take them back, we do the same accounting every day because during early vote, I'll run those ballots through the clear ballot and so we need to make sure that we the count match.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what we do. Yep, everything's the same. Yes.
The fact.
Last question, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Biden's administration has encouraged, what I'm gonna say is different voter registration sort of policies, as in, for a fact, the food stamps office in Pensacola was registering people to vote, okay? Now, the thing is that so that all becomes a part of the voter rolls. There's no way you could tell where those people came off, of course, the border, got a license in California and just came over here and chained. They could still.
It still goes through the same process.
Okay.
So it's like you could go to a library and register to vote. They send us the application, we check the four corners, send it to the state validates it, they send it back to us to process.
So if they registered to vote in our state, it's gonna come back to.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, so the process doesn't change, so there are places like that.
Yeah.
You know, again, it'd be like the tax collector, when people get their driver's license, they can say, do you wanna register to vote, do you wanna update your
Yes.
voter registration? Yes, I
They do
do,
it right there.
and they do it right there, and then it gets sent to us to process, yeah. All right,
All right, so.
well, thank you, we're gonna have a good election.
Thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate you being flexible and
No,
and
sure,
come
yeah.
on the following week
Oh,
instead
no,
of
not a
last
problem,
week.
not a problem.
We do ask you if you